There are people out there right now who are starting businesses.
Absolutely.
We know exactly what that feels like.
You're right in front of them, so it's like having a billboard that you're actually putting right in front of somebody's face.
When you're considering adding corporate apparel to your brand, these are some things that you should consider.
A lot of website companies, they build it and then they have the ownership of it, and then you don't. You want to own your website.
Welcome to the Marketing Compass podcast, where we navigate you through the world of marketing and advertising. I'm super excited to be here with you today. I'm Nick Prentice, your host for today's episode. And I'm joined here with Abigail. Abigail, you've seen before here on the show. Abigail is our main content writer. She handles the majority of our social media work on the team. We have a few others here that help out with that also, but you handle the visionary side of it, scheduling, the calendar, the narrative behind the posts and that kind of thing. So we're excited to have Abigail on today's episode, because today's episode, we're taking a look at a number of questions. This is a question and answer episode, where we're going to ask each other some questions that we've been receiving from you all, from our customers, over the last few years. So we've just been taking note of some common questions, and we've condensed that down to 10 questions that we're going to go over today, and just looking at common questions that business owners are wanting to know about before they get started in social media. So we're going to start out here with Abigail. Actually, I did want to preface this too. So these answering social media questions are challenging because it's a really broad topic, right? So we're going to be pretty general in our answers for just I would say probably the 80% of our own clientele, of our own businesses that we manage social media accounts for, that are maybe a little more rural than urban, that have probably more B2C type target groups rather than B2B, and probably more blue collar than anything there. So the recommendations that we're going to be giving are going to be kind of around that area, more generalized. So I just want to start with that. And if you have specific questions that you'd like answered, please feel free to go to the website, blueriverd.com. And there's a place there on the podcast page where you can ask us questions. You can even just ask us questions in the general contact form, or you can send any of us an email or call the office, and we'd be happy to answer your specific questions. But these are 10 questions that we answered a little more generally, like there. So yeah, I think we're just going to take turns asking some questions and see how it goes for the episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So Abigail, I think you have the first question for me, and then I'll ask one of you, right?
Yes. So another aspect of why we're being a little bit more general is social media is an ever-shifting landscape, and there's a lot that might be relevant today that will be relevant in a different way tomorrow. And so in as much as we want to provide advisement, we also want to recognize that things are going to continue to change and that there needs to be adaptability.
Yeah.
But one of the big things that we need to remember is that it is important for businesses to have a social media presence. So I would really like to hear why it's important for businesses to be present on social media.
For sure. Yeah, that is probably the biggest question we have of startups. We work a lot with contractors and landscapers and companies like that, who obviously have limited time and limited budget just starting up, and that's totally fine. We've been there. We like saying that a lot. We were a startup once. 10 years ago now, we started up, and we went through a lot of those same growing pains. So that question is, well, why do we even need social media? And even a step further, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later in another one of those questions, is like, I'm using social media, but I'm not getting a lot of phone calls from it. So to answer your question specifically, why is a social media presence important, especially to startup businesses? And that's because social media is your way to engage in your target audience, really in a non-salesy type manner. So social media, you're engaging that audience in in a safe space for them, right? So when you're on their timeline and they follow your Facebook page or your Instagram page or your TikTok channel, YouTube page, you follow those and you're watching those, your regular timeline feed, you're not expecting necessarily to be sold to. Especially if you're writing content, which you'll get into later on in narrative copywriting. But if you're writing good, engaging content, it shouldn't be salesy, right? So it should feel very organic and flow very smoothly. But this is your opportunity, because I know I say this a lot, right? That your budget is way more than your money that you're willing to invest, right? It is way more than that. And there's also your time, which is a huge time commitment.
Yeah.
So when we say that social media is free, it can be free. You can, as a business owner, can create the social media strategy and post regularly, write that content, take good photography, record videos, and post those on the platform for free. It takes a lot of time.
Yes.
So why you should have that presence is because it is the free way to get started. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So these businesses, especially getting started, this is their best foot out there in the market to tell their story, explain why they're doing what they're doing, share why they're different than their competition, and just kind of get that ball rolling, right? So social media is just it is a must. It really is. And in today's day and age, folks use digital more than anything else to make their decisions. And on social media, you're able to engage with them in a non-pushy format that's fun and can be a little more behind the scenes and how to, rather than, buy this product today, that kind of thing. And there's a space for that for sure, but leveraging it that way is a great way just to kind of get started, which is why I believe every business should have a social media platform and used in some capacity in their marketing strategy.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So let's move on with the next question here. So what types of content, Abigail, would you say that is most effective to use on these social media platforms?
Yeah. So there's kind of one straight answer for that, and that's short form video. It has the highest return on investment. It is something that people are constantly looking for. Almost every platform has it now, and it is the most effective way to reach your audience. That doesn't mean to, I don't mean to say that no other content forms are effective, but short form video content is by far the most effective. And what's nice is that it's so versatile. You can do so many different things with short form video, and it gives your audience a bite-sized piece of what your brand is. You can implement storytelling, you can implement testimony, user-generated content. You could even just simply have a slideshow of your projects with music and audio that's popular at the time, and that can help generate views and engagement. What's nice as well is that it doesn't have to be the only thing that you do, especially with, and we'll get into like what platforms are really important to have in a little bit, but with Instagram, there's a lot of versatility there because you have image, it's always visual, which is nice. And you can do pictures with slideshows and just your regular post. Doesn't have to be video, but then you can also do a supplemental reel to a post and then further go into the detailing of a project or the process. You can have your post that details the before and after, and then you can have more content, and you're generating lots of different types of content from the same project.
Correct.
But again, video, short form video content is by far what people are interested in.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, and the platforms are really pushing marketers in that direction also, because that's where you're seeing the most engagement is through short form videos, right?
Yeah. Likewise, the shareability of those, it's much easier to go viral with a video than it is with just a stagnant post.
Right.
So, So with that, I would really like to hear your thoughts on what the most important platforms for business to have are. We've talked a lot about Facebook and Instagram, TikTok and stuff, and other podcasts. But really, what should businesses be looking for as far as platform?
Yeah. So back to some of our original comments about being very broad in our answers. It really has everything to do with where your target audience is at. So based on the rule that we're going by for this podcast and being a little more general, is that I say master a platform. So Facebook is the place to start. Facebook still it has a huge audience. Even though we say that Instagram has a younger audience, the chunk of that audience in Facebook is still very large. So I like to say start with Facebook and master it, especially for startup businesses. These businesses, you've been around for 4, 5, 10, 15 years. You probably have a little more experience in capturing job site photos and things like that. So then you have more content to be able to use to expand into Instagram. Instagram is an easy next step because it's a meta platform, right? So it's easy to cross post. Now, I would preface that with saying that the audiences on Facebook and Instagram are very different.
Yes.
So long term, you need to have a strategy for what you're doing on Facebook, and it needs to be different than what you're doing on Instagram. But a good place to start, you have content out there, just to cross post. Just an easy way just to kind of get your foot in the door and be in another place. Because ultimately, if somebody's doing research about you and wanting to do business with your company, they're going to expect you to be in certain places. So you need to be where they're looking for you, So that today is Facebook and Instagram. Other platforms that I highly recommend would be YouTube. YouTube's the largest search platform in the world, largest social media platform in the world. It kind of depends on how you look at it and where you would categorize it, because there's definitely some search qualities to it, and there's some social media qualities to it. It is all, of course, video based, which goes back to your point earlier about the most valuable, most efficient, effective type of content. Then social media is being YouTube or being video. So YouTube needs to be in part of your strategy and where you're starting there. I've left off platforms like TikTok and X for right now because of where we're located and the type of customers we typically partner with. So if your business is one that is more urban, or maybe you do work in the bustling cities and things like that, Twitter and TikTok may be a little more fitting for you. If you have a really young audience, TikTok is there. And it kind of goes back to just time involvement also. So I make these recommendations about what social media platforms to work with. It has to work with your marketing plan also.
Yes.
So if your marketing plan, you don't have enough time in your day to make an effective plan, put together an effective plan for how you're going to create video, then YouTube and TikTok should not be in your strategy.
Yeah.
Not yet. It's something you need to be preparing for and planning for, because as we move forward, we'll talk about this a little bit in the end, possibly. Are we looking at, no, I don't think we are actually. Well, I'll mention it now. In the future growth of what social media is going to be in the next 5 or 10 years, it's all going to be video.
Yeah.
You're not going to have opportunities to just post straight text anymore. And even photography will probably go away. I think photography is going to morph into something a little more three-dimensional and engage in with asking for more user engagement into what's there. So you need to be planning for those steps to come in the future, right? So simple question, Facebook and Instagram is a great place to start. Make sure YouTube's on your strategy, especially with keeping in mind the importance of video moving forward. Yeah.
Very cool.
So how can businesses use storytelling, which is something that you're fantastic at? It was one of the really exciting pieces that we were just stoked about bringing you on the team, is your ability for for utilizing storytelling. But tell us about that. So how do businesses use storytelling to really enhance the engagement that they're looking to have on social media?
Sure. Yeah, so there are a couple of different avenues that allow for effective storytelling within your brand. One of them is even just if the actual history of your brand is engaging or inspiring or can be presented in that way. It's an excellent way to engage with your audience and humanize your brand, really bring in that social, emotional, relational experience. Another one is to tell a story through the services that you offer and really help your audience, your consumer, to see how the story that they would experience by utilizing your service is going to be likened to this story that you're creating. So if you have characters or somebody that the audience can relate to, engaging with your service, and it shows the narrative sweep of how they, at the beginning of the story, they're struggling with something, then they come into contact with this service or this product, and it drastically changes their outlook. That can be a really effective thing as well, and help your audience relate to that protagonist, and they want to be the protagonist of their own story. So that can be a really effective tool as well.
Yeah.
And then another way is actually telling the story of one of your consumers, one of your clients, and allowing that testimonial to be presented in a format that feels very storytelling-esque and really goes through the motions and emotions that were involved in the process of conducting that specific project. And really, as we get into all of the future stuff with technology and AI and how clinical all of that can be, so many people are wanting to feel that human touch and that human connection. And if you can maximize those moments in an effective manner, you don't want to go too far in one direction and it's like you're milking this story. You don't want to do that, but
it needs to feel natural.
Exactly. If it doesn't feel organic, people are going to know. It's like you can go to one side of the extreme or other where it's like too sappy or it's too clinical. You want to land in that natural sweet spot. And that really is what people are missing. We're seeing that in not just social media, but in entertainment as a whole.
It's true.
So people are really looking for ways to connect with one another. And if you can make your brand more than just something that's selling something else, that's really going to help you build your audience. And really, I would love to hear your thoughts on effective strategies for building and maintaining an audience on social media.
So that was just a fantastic full answer to that question. And I think what I love most about storytelling is it leads to all this other stuff here and how we can grow an audience and make sure the audience is engaging regularly, right? So storytelling in social media or in any kind of marketing, storytelling is the essence of marketing. It's what marketing is all about. To the core, as a company, you are trying to answer your consumers' challenges. And by storytelling, we're able to show the challenges that they're having, and we can provide a solution to that challenge, right? So if you're able to do that causes the post to be so engaging and people want to relate to it. We always say, we want folks to imagine themselves in that position, right? So when we, even from a straight photography standpoint, when we're posting high quality images on the platforms, think of landscaping customers that we do this work for, we want them to be able to picture that pool in their backyard. We want them to picture this patio sidewalk that they're replacing. This could be our sidewalk that I know that I've been needing to replace for a while, right? And if you can evoke that emotion out of those posts, we're going to get the engagement that we need, right?
Yeah.
So I think this also kind of helps us talk about the type of platforms we want to be using also, and some of the previous questions we had here, because it's important to understand what you're trying to do with social media platforms, right? So typically when we're marketing, we're thinking about, I would say basically two main categories. Is it lead generation or is it branding, right? It is often challenging to utilize a social media platform as lead generation. It is typically part of a branding strategy that is used to begin. You have an audience that's interested in your product. They're liking and following your page, right? They want to see your content. So that tells us they're an engaged, motivated consumer.
Yeah.
They could be a lead, right? But the way we want to engage with them is developing a relationship with them through the platform, right?
Yeah.
So we want them to understand who we are, understand why we do what we do, help them understand the services we provide, and help them understand why we're different than everybody else.
It's kind of a long game.
It's a long game. It's definitely a long game. And that's where we see a lot of challenges from new businesses. They want to get in and start with social media. We already talked about how it's a free way to get started, right?
Sure.
Besides your time, anybody can start a social media page. You can start your own Facebook page and start posting on there. But they're not getting the phone calls, right? Or they're not getting the comments. And there's definitely some tools and some strategies you can use to use social media as some lead generation. But that's just not how people want to engage with it, right? Especially when you move from Facebook to Instagram and from Instagram to TikTok and YouTube. YouTube may be a little different, but it is really hard to motivate any kind of engagement aside from a view and a share. Comments are a little more challenging, but it's doable. And then even more challenging is a click through to your website for more information, right? Because when you're scrolling on your phone, you know, and you're looking at the next video, as you watch the video, you may like it. I'm going to heart that one. I really like that video. I may save it for later. I may send it. I send funny cat videos from my wife all the time.
Sure.
I'll send that one over to her, you know, and then I'll scroll on to the next one. I very rarely go in and click on a link to go to the website to learn more information about it.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, there's ways to make that a little easier to do, but that's just not how, one, the consumer uses the platforms,
Right.
and then number two, it's not how the platforms want to be used. They don't want to send their traffic off of Instagram.
Right.
They want you on Instagram binging, like just going through all the time.
They're a business as well.
Exactly. And we forget about that a lot, right? It's all like the social media platforms and even search platforms like Google and Bing and Yahoo, like those are businesses. They want you to use them. So they're not necessarily in it to help you drive traffic to your website necessarily. And you can pay for it through ads and things like that. But you know, understanding how the results that you're hoping to get is going to be a big deal in that you're looking for engagement. It's a long-term game. You want brand recognition. You want to be top of mind. When that consumer is ready to buy, they're only thinking about you.
Yeah. And I don't know that we talk about this later, but there's a lot of discussion on the platforms themselves about the algorithm and trying to effectively utilize it or fight against it.
Yeah.
And that is a whole animal in and of itself.
It is. Yeah.
And so learning the algorithm and learning what kind of content is going to get you traction, that's oftentimes a personal, like within the business, that's their journey to figure out, or within their marketing team to kind of navigate. There are different tools that can be used. You were talking about ads as well. That's going to put your video or your content out into the algorithm more often, where people are going to engage with it, and eventually your page.
Snowball.
Right. Yes. But it really is a long game, and you have to be patient as you're putting content out. Instagram is not going to send somebody to a page that has 3 posts in a year.
Yeah.
You know, even 3 posts even 3 posts in a month is pretty sparse.
Right.
So it is a long game. It is
Mm-hmm.
very time demanding. But there are ways, there are strategies.
Yeah. So that brings up a really important piece, especially to make sure that we're involved in that algorithm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're ranking up there high, so that way we're going to be seen by the people that follow our page.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's impossible for these platforms, it's impossible for Facebook to show our post every single time we put a post up.
Yeah.
Because our followers follow hundreds and sometimes thousands of other businesses and friends and family and things like that. So it's impossible for them to necessarily to actually show our post every single time. So we need to affect that, and how we affect that is by writing engaging content, posting frequently, and engaging with the audience.
Yeah.
So if we're writing engaging content, they're commenting and sharing and all this kind of stuff, we need to be engaging back with them.
Yeah.
And then frequently posting and doing it consistently is really a huge piece of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if we're not I would say at least if you're not at least posting 3 times a week, and 3 times a week is light. It's very minimum, right? If you're not posting 3 times a week, you're not posting enough, and then you're not going to be seen. You can't force it, because the content still has to be relevant, because you're hurting yourself if you're just posting to post, so you need to have content, which is another reason why video is really cool, because we use the example of landscapers a lot today, but you go into one landscape project and you shoot video for even 10 minutes. You got a lot of content there. You can make a lot of different videos out of that one little piece. You can have processes, you can have snippets of this part of the project and this part of the project, and like you said, befores and afters, and interviews with the homeowner and things like that. So there's lots and lots and lots of different ways that you can utilize that video piece. But I think I'd like to pause here just a little bit. It's been a great first segment here, just talking about some of these questions. I want to transition here the last half to some additional questions we have. But in the meantime, we just want to pause and share this fun little segment that we have. It's just our Project Spotlight segment, where you have an opportunity here to see some projects that we've been working on, and hopefully it inspires you to be able to use something like this as well. So take a look.
Hey, this is Bill Hayes with Blue River Digital. We're excited to tell you about a project we've been working on for a while with the Builders Association of Elkhart County. We are working hand in hand with their committee and with a lot of other partners to promote the 2024 Parade of Homes. It's going to be an exciting event coming up in June that's going to have 17 homes throughout Elkhart County that will be toured and looked at by hundreds and hundreds of people. We're excited to be part of that. We've done signage for them, we've done the website, we've done social media, digital marketing things for them, we've done all sorts of print items, posters, tickets, you name it, we've done for them, and we've been excited to be a partner with them and helping promote the fact that this will end up being one of their best parades ever. We're just really excited to see how the marketing efforts that we're putting out there for the Builders Association helps promote the 2024 Parade of Homes, and excited to see that it will be one of the biggest ones they've ever had, with our partnership along with the others that are the TV, the radio, the billboards, print media, everything that we've been putting together and putting forth to make sure that this year's will be the best parade ever.
Welcome back to the Marketing Compass podcast. We're going to get back into some more questions about social media and the effectiveness of utilizing that for your brand.
Yeah, so I'll start off this second segment with a question for you, Abigail. So we've already talked about user-generated content, but how about you just share a little bit about the importance of user-generated content, what role it would play in your own social media strategy?
Yeah, for sure. Really, user-generated content, and just to define that, So that really details both the aspect of filming the process or documenting the process of a project that's being implemented for a client's home, if it's landscaping or renovation. It's documenting your engagement as a brand, as a business with the client. And oftentimes we like to utilize content that the user themselves, the client themselves, have documented as well.
Correct.
And allowing that relationship between client and business to really flourish and be seen publicly, that builds a lot of rapport for the business. It also gives a lot of potential clients the opportunity to investigate how, like, the quality of the work, the quality of the projects, and then also the quality of the customer service. Testimonials are a really great way to also signify that. And that can be both from the standpoint of an organic testimonial where the client has, experienced this project or this service with the business and has said on their own on social media, hey, we just had this happen, or we just had this service done by this business. They were awesome. We really appreciated how they conducted themselves and every step of the process. If that happens organically, that's a really big signifier that business is top notch. It's also effective to ask clients if they would be willing to provide a review or a testimonial.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes clients, like, they love the work that you do, but they don't necessarily realize that they can give a testimonial, or
they don't understand the importance of it. Possibly.
Right, exactly, yeah. So it doesn't hurt to ask and say, hey, would you mind leaving us a review? Or would it be okay if we had this testimonial from you about how this project went? We would love to hear your feedback. And it doesn't necessarily have to, every testimonial doesn't have to go on social media. Honestly, it really is just great business strategy to know how you can continue to work well with your clients, but then also how to
learn a lot from that.
Yeah, exactly. And it really does establish that relationship. And that's the biggest thing, is you want your clients, both active and potential clients, to want a relationship with you and to want to grow that relationship. You want them to recommend you to their friends and other business partners, So with that, with reviews, with posting photos and documenting the project, the process of the project, or even the process of developing a relationship with your clients, if it's business partners, helping people see the humanity in your brand, as well as the engagement that you have with your clients, with your business partners, with the people that you're serving. That's really going to be effective in helping establish your brand on social media, but then also just building your clientele.
Right. Yeah. It's especially the friends of your clientele, right?
Yes.
So you're not only getting them involved, you're getting your client involved and getting their buy-in on the process and helping them feel wanted. But you're also, social media is your virtual word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in that state on scrolling on social media and you see your friend on a video for a company that they tagged your friend, and now you're seeing this post and you may need some work done too. Now you can trust that, hey, because my friends use them, I should use them also. So it just really snowballs from that.
It does, yes. Yeah, it's a great networking tool. I would really also like to get into discussing, like, how businesses can measure their success on social media, because, like, you can have a lot of content. You could be putting out content almost daily and be like, man, I'm putting all this time and effort in, but I'm not getting the return on investment that I expected I would. So what does success look like? And is it a short-term thing, or is it more of a long-term thing?
Good question.
Finding that success.
Yeah, so it's both short-term and long-term. It definitely, like we mentioned before, social media is more of a long-term strategy for how you want to use it to build and build and build on itself. But there's really, I would say there's probably 3 or 4 main pieces of data that you want to be tracking that would measure your success. And not only it measures your success, it gives you baselines for what's next. How do you get better? How do you improve every single month with what you're doing? And you mentioned a really great point. So, like, people can post and they're thinking they're doing a lot of work, and they are doing a lot of work, but maybe not a lot of good. If the posts aren't engaging, and you're only getting one or two of the same followers that comment, like, or share your posts, then really, is that effective? Is it reaching the right people? Is it reaching enough people? And how do you break through that
Yeah.
that limitation that's there? So we also see this for other marketing agencies. So unfortunately, social media management has become something that is almost set it and forget it. There's some marketing agencies that use automated tools that just auto generate content based on feeds that they have and posts unrelevant content that's not relatable. Now they're posting 15 or 20 times a month, and so you look on their timeline, they're posting a lot, but they're not getting any engagement. They're not getting any reach. That's almost worse than not posting at all.
Yeah.
Right. So a few things you want to keep in mind. There's like I said, there's like four main metrics that you really want to be tracking and following on social media. First one for social media is reach. If you have high reach, it's just like anything else in sales. Like if you are getting in front of enough people, then eventually you should start getting the closings and the sales, the conversions, right? So first one is reach. So we want to be monitoring our reach. Second one is number of engagements per post. Third one is clicks per post. And then last one is conversions per post. And conversions it's a little harder to track organically on just a post that you put out on your timeline. You're really gonna have to dig into your Google Analytics to understand the conversions of that. Totally doable. It's something I recommend doing. It just takes a little bit more time than just logging into the back end of Facebook or Instagram or YouTube and looking at the stats that they provide you, right? So on your ads are a little bit different because you can put those pixels, the tracking pixels on your site, and you can track conversions that way and monitor there. So I started at the top, impressions, and ended with conversions, and that's really kind of the order that you see the numbers. Yeah, really high impressions, get lower, kind of somewhere in the middle, engagement, then you get lower number of clicks, and then at the bottom you get the conversions. That's what we see everywhere, right? So if you're out, we keep using the example of landscape company. If you're a landscape company and you're seeing 100 people and you're creating estimates for 100 people, well, maybe 70 of them, of the 100, are really interested right now. And then maybe 30 of them call you back, and then maybe 10 of them ultimately sign up. Now, hopefully your conversion rates are higher than that. I just pulled some numbers out of the air right there to kind of give an example. Hopefully you're closing more than that. And that's something we can help you with too if you want to talk about your processes and how you engage with your customers and that kind of thing. We can give some recommendations around that. But those four metrics are really where you want to start and what you want to be tracking. Because again, you don't want to be doing anything in your business just to do it. You need to be seeing that it's getting you a return somehow. And though Facebook, Instagram, all those social media platforms, they're not necessarily geared towards conversions, you still need to have expectations for how they're going to make you money. So with that, like how would you recommend that businesses encourage more engagement on their posts?
Yeah, excellent question. It can be kind of difficult with the ever-shifting landscape that is social media to know what you can be posting short-form video content and posting a lot of it, But if you're not really up on the trends, up on the algorithm, which we talked about a little bit ago, or up on how to effectively match your competitors, it can be a little bit difficult to really engage with your audience. And so what's good to have is a variety of different types of posts, a variety of ways that your audience can engage with you. And what's really nice is a lot of these social media platforms have those widgets or modules that you can directly interact with, like polls. Polls are really fun because then it allows, number one, it can get you some kind of organic information for what your audience is looking for, what their expectations are. You know, if it's just a fun poll, you know, like, oh, I don't necessarily have an example. We could go back to landscaping. You know, which do you prefer? Do you prefer this design, this aesthetic, or this aesthetic? You know, if you kind of put it out there to your audience, like which aesthetic do you think? Yeah. You can start to kind of see, oh, well, my audience prefers these, you know, this kind of mulch with this kind of rock wall, you know, stuff like that. And you can kind of see what potentially to start marketing towards your audience, and that can be really nice. It's also just fun for your audience. Another thing that can be really, really awesome for brand identity and for also engaging directly with your audience is doing Q&A sessions, live streams, you know, doing something like what we're doing, even if it's not necessarily live, having the opportunity to talk through situations or, you know, potentially problems to navigate, or just how to effectively work through something. You know, this is a great way to humanize your brand and also provide something that's meaningful and that's helpful to your audience. What can also be really fun, and as an artist, I see this a lot in kind of the realm of social media that I'm involved in. But contests. Contests are a great way to get people involved in what you do. And not just from the social media side where they're, you know, engaging with your posts, but to really allow them to understand who you are as a brand. And, you know, I mean, if they see a potential to earn something for themselves or to win something or to get a shout out on social media themselves, that's something that people are really looking for. Exactly. And so taking the time to plan those out and to invest in your audience in that way and see really what they're looking for, not just what you're selling, but what is your audience looking for and how to effectively market to them. But then also, I mean, there's room to have fun with it. There's room to enjoy that process. That's going to help your audience feel like they're connecting with you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it kind of reminds me a few weeks ago, just about the engaging with your audience and asking for their input and feedback, right? Because a few weeks ago, we had this conversation with a local association that needed help, which I think all associations are struggling with. The membership organizations are struggling with this right now. Like, how do we get more people engaged in that? And that is by one of the ways that you do that. And one of the recommendations we gave them some solutions to that, is to ask for feedback and then try your hardest to apply those.
Yes.
You know, so that's the next step. And I'll get to that a little bit later in some pitfalls that we see on social media. But listening to your customers and trying to use some of their suggestions so they see that I value what you suggested and we're going to start using some of that in what we do. And even if it's in little ways, you know, so we all understand, you know, in business, sometimes not everyone understands all of the ins and outs the way you, the business owner, knows it. And there's some things that just aren't possible and you can't do it that way. But you want to try to engage your audience in a way and help them know that you care about what they are sharing, that feedback that you're sharing, so they share the next time also.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And again, going back to like my background as an artist, one of the things that is really pushed in the community is learning how to take that criticism as constructive and, you know, not taking it personally, but recognizing that hopefully in the presentation it's clear that somebody cares enough to tell you, hey, you could be doing this better. So I would really love to hear with that, like, what are some common mistakes that businesses might make on social media, and are there ways to avoid that, or is it kind of sometimes there are just rites of passage when it comes to navigating a new thing, but what are some mistakes that businesses tend to make, and are there ways to avoid them?
So the first one I would start with is probably the one that I see most often, and that is posting just to post. And what that also leads to is maybe even inconsistent posting. So posting just to post, we kind of talked about that earlier. You need to have a goal in mind. Everything you do in business, you need to know that. And in fact, I had an old boss years and years and years ago that mentioned this, and I hope he's listening. He'd notice what I'm saying here, but it is what I'm doing today going to affect how I do business tomorrow? The task that I'm doing right now, is it going to help anything, right? It's the same thing you want to think about when you're writing content for Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of the social media platforms. When you're working on a project, what's my goal? And is it going to do me better in the future, right? So we see this a lot with folks, especially new businesses that go to a conference and come back with all these great ideas and things that they want to do and incorporate. And they feel this pressure. They feel this pressure because they just come back from a conference, and all of their colleagues, they say, you need to be on Instagram. If you're not on TikTok, then you're missing out. You need to be on TikTok. And then all of a sudden they feel this pressure that they have to do it. You don't have to do it. Every business is different, and we get into that a lot when we're giving advice on and recommendations on marketing strategy. Really depends on where you're at and what you have time for and what your budget allows for, right? So when you hear those kind of things and you come back and you feel pressured, and then all of a sudden you're posting just to post because you feel like you just have to, that is detrimental to your brand. Right? Because it's content that doesn't accurately represent you. You're not getting the engagement that you need to. Therefore, you're falling out of importance to the people that have followed you, and now you're not seeing their posts anymore. So I would say that's the first one, right? Second one, I would say would be listening to feedback. We talked about this just a little bit earlier, but I just reiterate that again. That, it's important to listen to your audience and understand what they're looking for. And sometimes they tell you specifically, and sometimes they do it just by not engaging or engaging more than other times. So you can tell, reporting. The analytics, the stats behind your posts are so important, and you need to be looking at those because it tells you so much information. So if you're noticing that you're posting certain kinds of content and you're just not getting anybody engaging on those, and other types of content you're seeing, you probably already noticed that. I'm guessing if you're running your own Facebook page and you're posting a lot of sales related content, and then all of a sudden you post like a birthday, and then you go from 8 likes to 40 likes, you can tell, like, okay, people like this and they don't like that, right? So how do you get away from that? So I'll get to that as the next pitfall that people are struggling with. But so listening to that and posting more of what they like and less of what they don't like, right? Also, if you're having those polls and things like that, and they give you feedback, like I said, try your best to incorporate something about what they're recommending to make them feel like, I heard you, we love it, we want you to continue to be giving us feedback, and we're gonna utilize it. The same thing goes when it comes to recommendations and reviews, right? So the worst thing that can happen is when somebody gives you feedback about your service and you ignore it. You need to comment on it. I think everybody in the world, there's some it's like Karens out there, right? that maybe are maybe a little more less realistic about life than others. But I think in general, every consumer understands that we are people and we make mistakes. And it's really hard to get all 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if you're working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers. And you might get a 3-star review here or there, right? Because it happens. We mess up. I mess up every day. But what makes businesses different is how you respond to those challenges and how you respond to those reviews.
Yes.
So you own up to them. You say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. We want to help. But you need to take the conversation offline
Yes.
and say, please call me, or I'm going to reach out to you first thing in the morning, and we're going to figure out a solution how to get you taken care of.
Yes.
Because then the audience sees that you value their feedback and you're going to do something about it. Right? We all understand there's situations out there where there's, like I said, there's that person that made this outrageous claim that just isn't true at all.
Yeah.
Those are hard. Those are really, really hard. And I'd be happy to walk through our suggestions on how to respond to those in a delicate way, and taking the conversation offline to try to address that. But if you just leave it and don't comment on it, then everybody assumes that person's right.
Mm-hmm.
Like what they just said is true. They have poor quality service and they are 1-star review.
Yeah.
So responding and taking that feedback into consideration. Lastly, I'll make this one really quick. But lastly, the balance of content that you post.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that you're so heavily invested, Abigail, on storytelling. Because that's what consumers want to see, not your sales specials that you have going on. And it's really hard as a business owner to do that because you're always thinking about lead generation. You want to bring in the business. So I just have a simple rule of thumb to try to follow it as closely as possible. 80-20. Mm-hmm. I use the 80-20 rule for about everything, and it applies to about everything.
Yeah.
But 80% of your posts you need to have as storytelling, as user-generated content, as fun behind the scenes, team member type content that helps the audience connect.
Yes. Yeah.
The other 20% can be your sales type side of things, right? So if you're a landscape company, like we keep using as examples, and you are really in need of more mowing accounts, then ask for mowing accounts. You can do that, but just don't do that every day, because then it becomes burdensome and overbearing and spammy, and then we unfollow you, or we just stop engaging, and then you're not reaching them anymore, right? So we went into this a little bit already, but this is the kind of last question, and we do get this question often, especially on Google reviews, which is different than what we're actually talking about here. But what would you suggest as some common practices on how to reply back on comments and engage in conversation, good and bad?
Yeah. So I'm going to say, through research that I've done and even my own experience in working with lots of different clients on their social media, it is important to, in some way, respond to every comment.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that you type out a response, but to at least engage with the comment.
Let them know you saw it.
Right. Yeah. You wanna react to it. You want to, if a customer does have a problem, it's and they address it online. Mm-hmm. It is very important to respond directly to that person in a public forum and say, thank you for your feedback. We're very sorry that this service didn't work out. We would love to remedy this. And you respond to their specific need, but in a way that recognizes that you're gonna continue the conversation offline or in DM somewhere else. That way it's not just this thread of potential drama,
right?
That looks bad.
Sure.
No matter what your brand is,
right.
you want to avoid that. But it's important to address. We talked about this a little bit ago. It's so important to address those things publicly, because if you don't, it's like a confirmation.
Yes.
Yeah. Even if you have hundreds of comments on something, thousands of comments, it's really important to like the comments that are, even if they're just there, you know, it's really important to like those comments. It shows that you're engaging with your audience, but then addressing those comments that do need addressed, and doing so in a diligent way and in a way that is respectful, that recognizes that the customer's experience was not ideal, and helping them to see that you do care about that fact.
Yep.
That you care about them and that you want to remedy this, you know. So always trying to convey a sense of wanting to fix it in some way, or wanting to come to a place of resolution. And it doesn't have to be these long, sweeping apologies.
Right.
It can just be a, hey, we're really sorry. Like I said earlier, hey, we're really sorry that this didn't work out the way that you wanted it. We have reached out via DM and would love to continue the conversation there and help remedy this.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. It's good to not just copy paste for every
sure.
comment, because some comments do need specific addressing.
Yeah.
But to have kind of a general, this is how we're going to respond. This is the
Have a strategy behind it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you always want to be approachable as a brand, and engaging that way with those harder comments.
Right.
That's going to help.
Yeah.
So something else is making sure that you respond within a pretty
For sure.
speedy time frame. You know, you don't want to let that comment sit for a couple days.
Right.
So being on top of, being active on your own social media, that's really important.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that another thing that it can be really daunting to be like, oh, you have to respond to every comment. You have to engage with every comment. Again, it doesn't have to be this big taxing thing. But if somebody is giving a testimonial in a comment, you know, you want to say, thank you so much for engaging with our services. We really enjoyed working with you. We would love to work on projects like this in the future, or, you know,
Try making those really personable.
Yeah.
So if they're giving a review or recommendation based on a specific thing that you did, it's great to talk about that experience, like what you appreciated about it, something that was unique that you remembered. It just makes it really, really personal.
Yeah, and it helps them feel seen and heard, and not just like a client. They're a partner. Yeah. And that's something that is increasingly being lost in our day and age. And if you want to have an effective,
that's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other one. But
I'd love to have it.
Yeah. So just really doing your best to humanize your brand, so that then you can engage well with the people that you're working with. That's so important.
That's the whole purpose of social media.
Exactly.
You know? Engaging with your audience. This has been great. We're up against the clock here a little bit, but here was 10 questions that we were able to get through, and really there were dozens more that we could have brought in, and maybe we'll do a follow-up to this another time, and bring in some additional questions that we've heard over the years, and maybe you have some that maybe we didn't address. Like I said earlier in the show, please go to the website and share those questions with us, and we'd be happy to either include them in a future show, or jump on the phone or a video call with you, or come on into the office. We'd love to sit down with you and answer some of those questions for you, because like you've heard before, our goal, we want to be a blessing to you. So we want to help. That's what the reason for this podcast is. We want to provide valuable information for you as a business owner that you can take back and start using today to be more profitable, not only with your money, but with your time as well. So with that, I just want to thank you for watching the show. Thank you, Abigail, for jumping on with us this time.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so thankful for your wealth of knowledge and your joyful attitude about everything. You're a valuable asset to our team, and we're just so thankful that you're with us and you're able to help us with our customers here.
Thanks so much.
But if you guys wouldn't mind doing us a favor, like we mentioned earlier, ask for those reviews and make sure you're commenting on them. But if you guys would do us a favor and please follow us on your podcast channel of your choice that's also listed on our website under the podcast page. You can go there and watch the most recent episodes. If you can subscribe and share a little comment about what you thought of the episode, write comments and questions and things like that. We would love that input, just to kind of help us continue to craft the show and get better and better at what we're doing and providing more and more valuable content. So until next time, we really appreciate you. I want you to feel encouraged that you can do this and go get it.